Welcome to Becoming Limitless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their brain and their body with biohacking. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate brain fog and upgrade your health so you can have more productivity, energy, and growth in your business. I'm your host, Tanessa Shears. Let's jump in. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. We are continuing our chat about sleep this week. This is going to be an episode all about the quality, the luxuriousness, the ability to harness the power of your brain with sleep. I'm so excited you're here today. I hope you've been having a great day today. So when I was thinking about this episode on sleep, I was like, well, how did I really discover sleep? And most of you guys know that I use a Fitbit, and that is how I track the quality of my sleep. And I got it while I was pregnant to count my steps, but I found that it really made such a difference in my life because I was able to monitor the sleep. And it was such an unexpected benefit of having a Fitbit. But when I was, just using my Fitbit for fun back when I first got it, I started noticing that I was experiencing a lot of light sleep. And, I wasn't feeling very refreshed during the day. And I was tired when I woke up, and I kind of just felt a little foggy all day long. And brain fog, I guess, was one of the big things that I kept experiencing over and over again. And it wasn't until I really started going into the coursework as a certified sleep science coach that I started understanding that, all of these numbers and, bumps and things like that on my sleep graph, they actually mean something. And that there is a reason for the target numbers they give you and what the target numbers actually mean. And so through a process of experimentation and watching my sleep data and using spreadsheets, because I really love a good spreadsheet, I started really looking at how the behaviors and the environment that I was sleeping in affected my ability to get quality deep sleep and REM sleep. So I started looking at things like, when I stay up and watch Netflix or I'm on my phone right until I fall asleep, what happens to my sleep? Oh, interesting. I'm not getting as much deep or dream sleep. Go figure. Or, when I was stressed out and going to sleep, I was awake a lot during the night, which was really affecting my ability to get enough dream sleep or enough deep sleep. And I started really playing with stuff like that. And you'll learn about some of the biohacks that I've invested in for my sleep, in coming episodes. But there are these really funky red lensed glasses that I ended up getting. And, I found that when I put those on, all of a sudden my sleep quality went through the roof and it got so much better. So on those days where I was looking at these numbers and I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. I hit my goal for REM sleep, or I hit my goal for deep sleep. That's pretty neat. Oh, but wait, I also feel better. And then, I'd stroll into my desk and I'd have all kinds of creativity, and I'd be writing newsletters, and I'd be putting up posts, and I'd have these amazing sessions with clients. Those kind of sessions you have, or the work that you do when you're just dang, that was a really good day. I had an impactful day today. It was wonderful. That is what I started finding on the days that I had high quality sleep. It directly correlated to my ability to be a better entrepreneur. And because I was able to show up and be more inspiring in the way I wrote and communicate better, value to the people in my community, my business started growing. I naturally started getting more inquiries about coaching and about helping people with their very real issue of feeling crappy in the morning and not having enough energy. And I know last episode we talked all about sleep duration and why that is different than sleep opportunity, right? And as the next step after you've done your circadian rhythm, it's about looking at the quality of your sleep. So if you don't know, sleep is generally broken down into two main categories. You have REM sleep, REM, and that stands for rapid eye movement, because that's literally what happens to your eyes. If you were to watch somebody sleep while they're dreaming, their eyes literally scan back and forth. And that's mostly when you're spent dreaming. So in contrast to REM sleep, you have non-REM sleep, which is basically everything except dream sleep. And that is composed of deep sleep and of light sleep. So while light sleep does have its purpose, the ones that we are really going to focus on in this podcast today is about the purpose and how to improve your REM sleep, and the purpose and how we're going to improve your deep sleep, and not only how to do it, but why it is so important. So let's begin by talking about deep sleep first. So, deep sleep is the restorative type of sleep. It's when growth hormone gets released, and growth hormone is an amazing hormone that helps you recover from your workouts and come back stronger and build muscle. Deep sleep is responsible for our ability to reflect on things we've learned through the day, and it helps us store new information. So I always like to think of it like if you have a USB and a hard drive, or maybe your computer desktop and a hard drive. So you know how you save files to your computer desktop all day long? Well, that's kind of what we do. And when we, have memories or we learn things, we commit it to short-term memory. And that's kind of like putting something on the desktop. But ultimately, short-term memory is not where we want to keep the important things. We want to keep it in long-term memory so that, we can access it and integrate it into our work and what we do. So that would be the equivalent of taking the files off of your desktop and putting them onto your hard drive where they can be stored long-term. And one of the benefits of deep sleep is it allows and facilitates that storage process of new skills and new concepts that you've learned during the day. Now, on average, we want our deep sleep to take up anywhere from 10 to 20% of the time you spend asleep. Now, this is based on age because when we look at deep sleep, it has long, slow, luxurious brain waves where we really get to, have that restorative experience. Now, it has been shown that with age, you actually lose your ability to generate deep sleep as easily. So if you're looking at older adults, usually older than 45 or 50 or 55, what you're looking at is a reduction in the percent of the night spent in deep sleep. So you might be closer to that 10% range. On the other hand, younger teenagers or in their early 20s might easily be looking upwards of 20% of deep sleep per night. So on average, those are kind of the ranges you want to aim for, anywhere from 10 to 20% sleep. And because deep sleep does degenerate over time, it is something we want to protect fiercely because it is what allows our body to restore and allows our memory. So that's why when you see older adults in their 70s and their 80s struggle with their memory, it's because they're not experiencing enough deep sleep to help process those memories into long-term storage. So one of the other really neat things about deep sleep that I thought was so neat is if you picture the brain is full of cells, right? Like that's all it is. It's brain cells upon brain cells upon brain cells. But as the day goes on and you make decisions and chemical reactions occur in the brain and there's electrical firing, all of this happens, there's naturally like byproducts and breakdown that happens as, all of these connections are made and broken and everything is going on in the brain. So we want to be able to wash our brain out of all of those metabolites that are kicking around because some of those are actually the ones that directly lead to Alzheimer's. So we want the ability to cleanse our brain. So this really neat thing happens is where our brain cells actually shrink back a little bit while we sleep. So our brain actually shrinks and the gaps between each cell get a little bit bigger. And what this allows is we have this type of fluid that surrounds our brain and runs down our spine called cerebral spinal fluid. And this spinal fluid comes in and it gives your brain like a bit of a bath and washes out all of the garbage that is, creating memory deficits and not allowing you to recover. So deep sleep is so important. So deep sleep is kind of funny. It's really hard to wake someone up from deep sleep. Like if you encounter, your partner or one of your kids or a friend and they are fast asleep and you go to wake them up and you're like having to really shake them to wake them up, it's likely you're catching them in the middle of deep sleep. You get that really enjoyable drop in heart rate and blood pressure and the body fully relaxes. There's very little muscle tone. Like if you were to pick up their arm, it would probably be nice and limp and then you drop it and it would fall straight down. So that is one of the hallmark signs of deep sleep. Now, let's talk about REM sleep. REM sleep is categorized by the eye movements you see that make up the rapid eye movement part of REM sleep. So what we experience is also very low muscle tone. So there's this really neat thing that actually happens, and it's kind of like a straitjacket effect. So when we are dreaming, we don't want to be acting out our dream. So say you were, fighting someone in your dream. The last thing you want to do is start fighting in your bed, especially if you're sleeping with someone, because you might get an elbow or a kick, right? So what actually happens is our brain blocks all of the motor commands from our brain to our muscles that tell them to do things. Like, for example, if you were to do a bicep curl, your brain had to tell your bicep to contract in order to do a bicep curl. Well, this process actually gets blocked while you're sleeping so that you don't act out your dreams. I thought that was so interesting, that straitjacket effect that happens. But when we actually look at the brain itself, if you were to, strap on all the electrodes to your brain and see what it's doing, it looks very similar to an awake brain. It's the dreaming experience on brainwaves is like being awake. So it would be very hard for researchers to tell the difference between scans of an awake brain and scans of a dreaming brain, which I actually think is pretty cool. So when you're looking at your Fitbit data or your Oura Ring data or whatever prints out your sleep data, and you're looking at your dream sleep, on average, we want to get between 20 to 25% of our night spent dreaming. So now that you know that there's two different types of sleep that we're discussing, REM sleep, which is your dreaming, and deep sleep, it's important to know that they have different places in your sleep, meaning they happen at different places. So if you look at a full night of sleep from, say, 10 p.m. until 6 a.m., the majority of your deep sleep is actually going to happen earlier in the night, and the majority of your REM sleep is going to happen later. So if you're looking, in that 10, 11, 12, 1, even to 2 range, the majority of your deep sleep is going to occur then, and then it slowly transitions to dreaming at the end of the night. Now, this isn't to say you don't get deep sleep later in the night and dreaming earlier in the night. It's just that the ratio shifts. Now, one of the funny things that I actually found out is that REM sleep is very important to us because without it, we are more like monkeys than like humans. So monkeys have less REM sleep than humans. So remember how I said that humans on average get 20 to 25% of the night in REM sleep? Monkeys only get 9%. So essentially, if you're foregoing quality sleep and you're getting just junk sleep during the night that isn't effective, even as low as 9%, you're basically showing up to your business with the intelligence level of a monkey. Not to slight monkeys, but that's not how I want to be showing up in my business. I want to be showing up as the enhanced humans that we're working to become. So value your REM sleep because it's what makes us different than monkeys in terms of our ability to problem solve and have creativity. Now, there's a book that I have read that I highly, highly, highly recommend everyone reads because if you sleep, this applies to you, which means you need to read this book. It's called Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. And in this book, he demonstrated a study that I found absolutely fascinating. So what it was measuring emotional irrationality and inadequate sleep. So it was a study and it was done using MRI brain scanning. So they were able to see the response on the brain. So there were 2 groups. One group was kept awake all night on purpose, and the other group slept completely normally. They got their 7 to 9 hours of night. So both groups were shown photos of neutral to really negative images. So things like houses burning down, really sad or angry people, that kind of thing. And what they did was they compared the brain response of the 2 groups, so the group that slept and the group that didn't, on how they responded to increasingly negative triggers. So there's a really neat area in our brain actually called the amygdala, and it's responsible for, all of our emotions, whether we feel anger or rage or, stress. And what they actually saw was in the group that was sleep deprived, the response from the amygdala was increased by 60%. The emotional reactivity of the group that was not well slept, that had stayed up all night, was 60% bigger. So when they looked at the sleep-controlled group, there was just a modest degree of activity. So say they saw the picture of a house on fire, they had a moderate reaction. But the group that was sleep-deprived had a larger response in this emotional center out of the brain. So what this teaches us is that without sleep, our brain has an inability to manage and control our emotions. It's unable to respond appropriately. So where this comes into play is in your business when you're getting feedback from a customer, or you're dealing with, learning a new software, or you're learning how to maybe put up a podcast or something like that, or a link isn't working and you need it to start working. And what this can tell us is that the entrepreneurs who are sleep deprived are more likely to have an emotionally negative reaction to the same thing as an entrepreneur that is well slept. Now, I don't know about you, but my ability to not get overwhelmed and to stay focused and clear and disciplined, meaning I do things even when I don't feel like it, or even when something has gone on in my day that has stressed me out, my ability to get back to work and into flow all depends on my ability to manage my emotions and to be in control. But when you are underslept, it directly affects your ability to show up as an emotional adult and with emotional maturity in situations that would otherwise be stressful or overwhelming or cause you to become angry and respond to your customer or a colleague in a way that is not aligned with the kind of business owner you want to be. Sleep gives you rational control. I have clients say to me all the time, like, why are you in such a good mood all the time? You're just so even keel. You don't get angry very often. You're always upbeat. And I can tell you without a doubt, this has to do to the fact that I value my sleep when it comes to my health above almost all else. Because if I'm not able to make an even keel and generally have a positive outlook, there's so many other decisions that I'm going to make that aren't aligned with what I want to do. I might skip my workout, or I might indulge in a hamburger when I had originally planned to have a salad. So being able to have that rational control and be in charge of my own emotional impulses is key in growing a successful company. But it doesn't end there. So the study that was actually done by the author of the book took this one step further. They looked at sleep-deprived brains and also looked how they responded to increasingly positive stimuli. So when the last study, they were looking at, how the brain responded to negative stimuli, but they're now looking at the positive stimuli. And they were doing that by analyzing deep emotional centers in the brain. Specifically, they were looking at the striatum, and that is responsible for impulsivity and reward and, dopamine and all of that kind of thing. So the results were that it didn't just, create a bad mood for you and you stay there. It actually found that we have a pendulum swinging like effect. Like we will have those experiences of anger and frustration and overwhelm, but then we'll swing all the way to the other side, to the other extreme. And that is affecting our ability to make good decisions, because being overly stimulated by positive things, that hypersensitivity to pleasurable experiences can be equally as damaging. So a good example for that is overeating, or for thinking, you know what? I'm done for work today. I'm just going to go, have the rest of the day off, or I'm going to stay up and skip out on high quality sleep and just watch Netflix all day. It's that leading into sensation seeking. It's all about valuing the immediate gratification more than the long-term gratification. So when your brain is underslept, not only do you react more negatively, but you also seek out short-term gratifications. Think things like taking shortcuts on your clients and your customers, doing things for maybe likes on social media instead of producing valuable content. Think of things like overeating or over drinking that are disrupting your sleep. Think of things like skipping workouts or, not being able to manage stress properly. So the pleasure-seeking side of the emotional pendulum you're on is equally as damaging. So like I said, as entrepreneurs, we want to have that emotional, rational control, and being sleep deprived directly affects our ability to remain emotionally neutral, even keel, and make our decisions from that place. I don't want to be making decisions from a place of anger or frustration or from a place of wanting a reward now. I want to always be looking at the long term of my business, and I want to always be looking at that entrepreneur I'm going to be 5 years from now and 10 years from now, and the company I'm going to have 5 years and 10 years from now. And that is one of the primary reasons that I place sleep so high on my priority list. And when it comes to sleep, that REM sleep that we can get, that rapid eye movement sleep, it it is kind of like liquid gold for entrepreneurs. It is what leads to us integrating ideas and concepts that we learned from the day and taking old stored memories and skills and combining them with new incoming information to create a perception of the world, which allows us to create solutions. It allows us to connect ideas and come up with out-of-the-box solutions and problem solving, because that's what being an entrepreneur is about. It's about being able to solve problems for other people, and our ability to solve problems and the intensity of the problems we solve is going to be directly correlated to our ability to grow and scale our businesses. And on top of that, REM sleep has been shown to enhance creativity and to help us come up with more inspiring ideas. So to skip out on REM sleep not only gives us monkey brain, but it literally makes us less of the entrepreneur we want to be. So I'm going to be sharing specific biohacks for your sleep and why they work and how they work in upcoming episodes, but I want to make sure that I'm giving you something actionable that you can take today, apply today, and start really feeling the benefits of right away. So I have here 6 ideas which I want to share with you. So number 1 is, and this is going to make the most difference, and we went over it on the last podcast, it's all about regulating your circadian rhythm. That means a solid start and end time that is consistent for your sleep every single night. So that's number 1. Number 2, eliminate evening alcohol. The very latest you want to be consuming alcohol is 6 p.m. It directly has an effect on REM sleep because it sedates your brain and makes it harder to stay asleep during the last half of the night. And that's pretty much when the majority of our REM sleep occurs. So number 2, eliminate alcohol, especially after 6 p.m. Number 3, you want to allow for a greater sleep opportunity time. So what that means is most of that REM sleep happens in the morning, so you don't want to be skipping out on that. So allowing to make sure you're getting your 7.5 to 8 or 9 hours of sleep per night so that you're not skipping out on dream sleep, because if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not getting enough REM sleep either. Tip number 4, blackout curtains in your room or blinds. You want to eliminate that early morning light. Anything that is going to disrupt the sleep early in the morning, think 3, 4, 5, and 6 a.m. is going to directly affect the amount of REM and dream sleep you get. So if light is creeping in your window, especially in the summer hours when it's bright out, at 4:35 in the morning, that's going to disrupt your REM sleep. So make sure that your room is blacked out and all light is blocked. So you shouldn't even be able to see your hand in front of your face. Next tip, remove artificial light from your room. So if you look around your room in the middle of the night, you shouldn't be able to see any LED lights or things that are charging. So a good example is when my phone is fully charged, a bright green light shows up. So I always have to make sure that my phone is charging in a drawer or at least face down with something over top of it, because light can actually disrupt your sleep, which can of course affect your REM sleep. And the last one is to make sure you're turning off blue light from your screens or devices at least an hour to 2 hours before bed. So put your phone down. It's okay to turn the computer off. And I know that there are definitely going to be nights where you're going to be doing a launch or something important is coming up. But for the majority of nights, you want to be able to have that time with the blue light and being able to turn it off so that you can actually get to sleep. There's been so many studies that have shown that looking directly at blue light sources like your cell phone, even as much as an hour before bed, can affect not only your sleep that night, but your sleep for the subsequent 2 to 3 nights. So have that time for you. Wind down, close down your devices, and really let yourself enjoy the benefits of high quality sleep. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is the question that I get, and people ask, well, how can you tell if you're getting enough deep and REM sleep? And honestly, without some type of wearable sleep tracker, you can't. Because I want you to think about this. When you wake up in the morning, your brain has a very difficult time assessing the quality of your sleep. Like, you don't get a printout that says, oh, well, great job. You got enough dream sleep, but you didn't quite get enough deep sleep. That doesn't happen. So I always like to think of the idea of a bank account. Without a way of checking what's in your bank account, you'll never really know the value or the amount of money you have in there. The same reason why I highly, highly recommend that everyone have some sort of sleep tracker. It's pretty much mandatory for my clients now to have it, and I do share one with them, and it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be as basic as a Fitbit Inspire heart rate. So we're recording this right now at the end of 2020, and they're about 120 Canadian or about 90 American dollars. They're not that expensive, and they are a very small investment when you are looking at the trade-off of being able to tell if you're getting enough sleep. Now, Fitbit to me is just the one that I use first and the one I've stuck with. I've tried an Oura Ring and I have opinions on that, but there's definitely other options. You can try BioStrap. They measure your sleep. Garmin is another option. There really is no right or wrong, but one of the important things to know is that these devices will never be as accurate as a polysomnography. And that is when you were to go to a sleep lab or do a sleep study where they, would hook up the electrodes to your head. None of these are going to be as accurate as that. Sure, there might be some arguments by some companies that their device is more accurate than others, but ultimately what I like to look at is I like to measure relative improvements over time. So a plus 2% improvement from October to November in your REM sleep is still plus 2%, whether it's telling you that you're getting on average 17% or on average 22%. So I like to look at relative improvements to help that out. So I really hope that has been fascinating and interesting and helpful about how to improve your sleep. Sleep is the most potent tool in our toolbox that we have to make us highly productive, to help us get more done in one focused day of flow than most people can get done in 3, 4, or 5 days at work, right? It's about being able to show up and be emotionally managed. That's what I like to say, to have the ability to solve problems and create connections that might have otherwise not been available to us. So if this has been helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that you always get notifications when future episodes come out. And if you've been loving the podcast so far and the type of content I've been delivering, I would be honored if you would take a moment to just go and leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. It really would help me, and it helps reach other people like you so that we can create highly optimized entrepreneurs and that we can, step into the future of entrepreneurship together. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. Have a beautiful week, and I will see you next time. Ready to begin each day feeling energized and focused? I'd love to work with you one-on-one. In my Becoming Limitless program, you're going to learn how to optimize your brain and body with science and biohacking so you can be highly productive and grow your business faster. Join me over at TanessaShears.com/work with me. I'll see you there.